All right, guys, we have some information on Season 6, which will be starting very soon. So if you don't already know, at the end of this month, Season 5 will be ending for Global, and Season 6 will be starting at the beginning of April. And the units that we're going to be getting are confirmed. It is going to be this Ceremony Luck and this Ceremony Yami, who are both fairly decent characters. I'm not going to say they're meta-breaking, because they're definitely not meta-breaking, but I think they have fun abilities that make them actually kind of unique and kind of fun characters to play with. And I will say, I think they're better in PvE overall than they are in PvP. I was lucky enough to pull them on my JP account and got to test them out a little bit, and like I said, I think they're decent characters. Definitely they're going to be good for newer players, but if you're an older player, you might actually kind of want to skip on their banner, because we are going to be getting a very, very hype character probably about 2 weeks to a week later. It just depends on when they release things. So we don't actually have an exact banner schedule yet. Just to clarify that, we don't have exact dates yet for when these banners are releasing, but I would expect this one to release around April 1st, and then the other banner to release around like the 10th to the 15th. We'll have to see when they actually release it though. Okay, so along with this normal banner that we have for Luck and Yami, we are also going to have a premium paid banner for Luck and Yami. So you will be able to spend your premium black crystals if you are a whale or a dolphin, or you want to spend money on these characters to potentially get them. Of course, you should be able to get one of them from the Gateway of Reunion, so hopefully you guys have your keys. I do believe that's still going to be around. I don't think they're getting rid of it for Global. I know they like changed things up on JP and KR for a little bit. I don't know exactly what else is going on with that, to be honest. We'll see if they ever give us an update on that. Hopefully it's just normal. We keep the Gateway and everything stays normal, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, but for right now, these two characters are coming. You should be able to use a key on one of the characters. We'll talk about both characters' kits and kind of who I think you should potentially use your key for, and it's really just going to depend on whether you're trying to take on PvE or PvP content. But let's talk about the banner that is coming after them. So I said banner, but it is actually banners, plural, because we are getting a rerun of Julius. So if you have been like, oh man, I want Julius, he's so good, I didn't get him the first time, or maybe you didn't dupe him out, or maybe you didn't dupe out his skill card, well, you are definitely going to have a chance now to do that if you wanted to, which is very, very hype. I think Julius is still good to this day, even on JP and KR. Is he still like super, super meta relevant? I mean, debatable, especially with Mereoleona being out on JP and KR, but I do think he's a very decent character. I don't know, I wouldn't go so far as to say that he is still necessarily like top meta. I would say he's like sub meta as a character, so definitely worth having, and definitely worth getting a skill card and maybe getting some dupes of if you don't already have him max duped out. So that's very hype. Once again, we don't have an exact date for when that's going to come out, but I assume he will come out alongside the other banner, and that other banner is the Mereoleona banner. That's right, Mereoleona is going to be coming out. So we have had quite the run at Black Osta. We had the Season 6 units with Charlotte, we had Witch Queen, we had Fauna, who's really good, or Fauna is going to be coming out. She hasn't even released at the time of recording this video, and then we're going to have Mereoleona. Luckily, the Season 6 units, the Yami and the Luck, are kind of a skip. So if you ever needed a banner to skip, that's kind of the banner to skip. But this Mereoleona, very, very good. I recommend pulling on this banner. Do not skip this banner. If you can get her and her skill card, she's going to be very good. She is a fest unit, just like Black Osta, just like Julius, so she is going to be necessary for you. And if you know anything about Black Osta, people who have him are like, oh, he makes content so easy to clear. People who don't have him are hurting right now, right? And so I'm just saying, Mereoleona going to be a very, very good character. But let's take a look at Yami's kit, let's take a look at Luck's kit, and let's take a look at Mereoleona's kit, and you guys can kind of make that judgment for yourself. All right, so here we have Ceremony Yami, and I actually kind of really like this character. So actually, before we even go over his kit, I just want to point out the rankings. He is S in PvE and A in PvP, and I would actually tend to agree with this. So he's not the craziest in PvP, but like a decent character, right? But if you want someone who's going to be good for PvE, Yami is a solid option. His skill 1 is a single target attack. It's called Continuous Slash, and it is going to deal 50% of attack and magic attack as extra damage. And then upon using skill 1, the number of instances of extra damage increases max to 4 times. His skill 2 is called Swift Strike. It is an AoE attack, and what it's going to do is it attacks after removing counter attack from an enemy, which is pretty interesting. And this is like specifically designed to like counter Luck, and then Luck counters Yami, and then so on and so forth. So if an enemy is taking continuous bleed damage, inflicts a stun status element on them for 1 turn. That is kind of That's honestly really good. If you have someone who can do an AoE bleed before Yami and then Yami gets to attack, like that could be really, really nuts. And then if an enemy is not taking continuous bleed damage, inflicts continuous bleed damage on them for 2 turns. So if they're not taking bleed, he can apply the bleed. But like Witch Queen applies bleed, right? And Witch Queen isn't necessarily going to be all that crazy, but like, I don't know, it's an idea. There are plenty of other characters who can bleed and stuff like that. And then we have Dimension Slash, which is his special skill, and he is going to unleash a powerful strike that can cleave dimensions, blah, blah, blah. It is a single target attack, and so this is going to grant self a 100% of attack as a barrier for 2 turns, so you're obviously going to be building him for attack. That barrier is actually pretty nice, and then removes all instances of continuous damage from self. When the instances of extra damage of skill 1 are added to max, because remember it stacks up to 4 times, attacks after granting a defense penetration level 5 buff. That's insanely, insanely good. Defense penetration level 5, attacks while ignoring 50% of the target's defense. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then when the instances of extra damage of skill 1 are at its max, attacks after granting a 300% increased damage dealt buff as well. And then when the instances of extra damage of skill 1 are at its max, the instances of extra damage is reset when you use this skill. So keep that in mind. It's only going to work once. You're not going to be able to just like spam this skill even if you give him back his ult with like Green Charlotte, for example. So keep that in mind. It's a pretty decent skill. It's going to basically allow you to nuke one potential enemy if you get to that point, but you do have to stack up your skill 1. So it's kind of like, but I do like the idea of the barrier, especially on like a mono green team. With Charlotte, it could work out pretty decently. And then performs a combined attack with your partner, dealing damage to an enemy for this, and he will remove a counter attack on his combined attack. As for his passive, for enhancing him, LR+2 at the start of a turn grants a barrier equal to 100% of attack for 1 turn if SP is equal to 8. So once again, fits in with that kind of mono green team barrier idea. I like it. LR+5 at the start of a turn grants a barrier equal to 100% of attack for 1 turn if SP is equal to 8, so same thing as before, and then with the additional effect of apply 30% damage reduction on yourself if SP is equal to 8. So that damage reduction is really, really good. And then if you pair that with like Charlotte's damage reduction that she gives as well, that's like 60-something% damage reduction, or if not more. I think it might be more than that. Charlotte does like 54, I think, percent damage reduction if you have it upgraded all the way. So 50, 60, 70, 80% damage reduction if I'm remembering that right. So really, really crazy damage reduction for turn 1, basically, if Charlotte gets to go and this Yami gets attacked and he's slower than everyone else. So he could be pretty tanky. And then his unique passive grants 30% increased damage dealt when attacking a defender. So that's also going to help you to hopefully do some damage against defenders. However, right now one of the like top defenders is Black Oster, right? So, and since this is a green type unit, it's going to be a little bit harder for a green type unit to do damage to a red defender, but that helps him out a little bit. So overall, I think this Yami is decent. I think the red team is just so strong right now, or it's about to be very strong on global, especially with Mereoleona's release, that it's going to be harder to run a character like this. Okay, but that's kind of my opinion of him. Let's take a look at Luck. So Luck is a blue type technique attacker character, and he is ranked a little bit lower than Yami. He's ranked A in PvE and B in PvP, and so Luck doesn't have barriers. He actually has counterattack, and I actually really like this Luck. It is the first SSR Luck in the game, and so just like with Magna, I'm excited for this character. I'm excited to get my first SSR Luck in the game. And so his skill 1 is called Lightning Edge. It is a single target attack, and it inflicts electrocute on an enemy, dealing continuous damage for 2 turns. Electrocute is when the enemy takes damage equal to 20% of attack and 20% of magic attack at the start of your turn, and he's going to attack after removing an enemy's barrier on his skill 1. So guaranteed barrier removal on skill 1, honestly very, very good. And the guaranteed electrocute, that's really good as well. So I really like Luck skill 1. Personally, I kind of like, when I read the kits, I like what I read for Luck better. But overall, I think Yami ends up actually working out better in the game. So on paper, I like Luck better, but in the game, I like Yami better. And so for his skill 2, it is an AoE attack. It's going to grant counterattack for 1 turn to all allies who don't already have counterattack. And then here's a cool thing that it does. It grants counterattack duration +1 to all allies who have counterattack. So if you have like season 3 from Global, once again, Charlotte, and you do the counterattack with her, and then you use skill 2 with Luck, you can extend that counterattack on everybody, which is kind of cool. And then also, Keep in mind, if you were to max dupe that Charlotte, she already extends the counterattack by 1 turn, so you could potentially, with this luck and that Charlotte together, have 3 turns of counterattack, which could be just crazy, right? So this luck is actually pretty decent. You do just kind of have to build towards a counterattack team, though, with him if you're going to run him. Luckily, there are a decent amount of characters, blue characters, who have counterattack, like William and that Charlotte. So his special skill is called Lightning Stomp, and it inflicts electrocute on an enemy, dealing continuous damage. Once again, the electrocute is the same thing. And then upon attacking, deals 40% of attack and magic attack as extra damage based on instances of counterattacks present on allies. Okay, so that's nice. So you can get a lot of extra damage potentially depending on how many instances of counterattacks you have on allies. And then grants self increased speed level 1 buff for 1 turn, which increases his speed, meaning he's going to hopefully get his skill 2 and skill 1 a little bit quicker, which is just a nice little bonus. So overall, I really like Luck's kit. His combined attack is if an enemy is afflicted with continuous damage, attacks after granting 30% increased damage dealt buff. I wish this removed barriers to make it a little bit better, but I'm okay with it the way it is. It's not terrible. And then for his LR enhanced passive, so if you get him to 2 dupes every turn, if counterattack is present on self, grants a 70% reduced damage taken buff for 2 turns. That's really, really good. That's kind of the icing on the cake for him. I really like that. And then LR plus 5, you get the same thing. And then also, when attacking an enemy with continuous damage, increase your special points by 8. So if they are electrocuted, and whenever you attack them, you attack them and get your special right back. That's just insane. So Luck can literally go special, skill 1, special, skill 1, special, skill 1, and just pop off. It's actually just crazy how good that is. So if you max dupe this character, he's actually just crazy when you max dupe him. And then his unique passive, if counterattack is present on self, attacks after granting a 10% increased damage dealt. So even more damage. So he has damage resist. He has a special coming back basically every other turn. He has increased damage dealt, and then he has increased damage based on the counterattacks, and then he also can give counterattack to your whole team, or he can extend counterattack duration. All of that is really, really good. Like I said, on paper, he looks absolutely phenomenal. Execution in the game, I don't know, maybe not quite as good, but I did not get him max dupe when I tried him out on my JP account. I would like to try. This is a character, I see that effect, and I'm I kind of want to max dupe him and see how he looks max duped. So that might be something I do. I don't know. It's going to be really hard to justify it, especially when I want to max dupe Mereoleona, who we'll talk about now. So Mereoleona is S+ in both PvE and PvP. She is a defender type unit who once again can do some pretty good damage, and she kind of completely shuts down Julius. She's just a really, really good character. Okay, so her skill 1 is called Kalidos Iron Fist, and if an enemy is taking continuous damage, inflicts taunt on them for 2 turns. That's crazy. That's really good. A skill 1 guaranteed taunt as long as they're taking continuous damage for 2 turns. That's really, really good. And then her skill 2 is Kalidos Brachium. It is an AoE and attacks after inflicting barrier removal on a designated enemy. So she will remove a barrier, and that's pretty good. And you get to choose the enemy you want. I wish it was an AoE barrier removal. That would be even more just broken, but still pretty good. AoE damage and you remove barrier. So very good. And then Kalidos Brachium, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, is going to be a single target attack, and it grants an extra turn upon killing an enemy once again for every instance of continuous burn damage on the enemy. Attacks after granting a 65% increased damage dealt buff for each instance of burn. That's really, really insane. That's what makes her kind of ridiculous. And then she also basically ignores barriers. So she gets rid of barriers when attacking an enemy. So she gets an extra turn, she gets extra damage, and she removes barriers. Her skill right here, special skill, is just absolutely crazy. It's so, so good. And then her combined attack inflicts continuous burn damage on an enemy for 2 turns. And then for her LR enhanced passive at +2 dupes, at the start of a wave, inflicts taunt on the enemy with the highest all attack for 1 turn. So if the enemy is running a Julius, which a lot of people like to run, right? Julius is probably going to have the highest all attack, and you taunt him at the beginning. That's insanely good, especially considering her typing. And also, when she has Mana Skin here, she's going to have immunity to status elements, as you can see. So she taunts Julius, and Julius has to ult her if they're going to ult, and he can't stun her. That's kind of crazy. That's what makes her really, really good. LR +5, at the start of a wave, you get the same thing, once again, of the taunt, and then you get the additional effect. Upon taking damage, inflicts continuous burn damage on all enemies for 2 turns. Anytime she takes damage, bro. That's insanely good. So if you can just keep stacking up your burns, this is a character, this is why you want her at LR +5, because remember, on her special, you get extra damage for each instance of continuous burn damage. So if she gets attacked, she's going to be popping off. She's going to be absolutely crazy. And then the unique passive, like we talked about before, upon having 8 SPs, grants mana scan. So at the start of battle, she'll have mana scan, and what that's going to do is it's going to reduce her damage taken by 30% and give her immunity to status ailments. So that's all really, really good. And that's part of why Mereoleona is currently S+ in both PvE and PvP. Absolutely broken character, very good character. And once again, we don't know exactly when this banner is going to drop. If I had to guess, like sometime between April 10th and April 15th, that's my guess. And we'll be getting the new Lucky Yami around April 1st. So now you guys got to make the decision for yourself. I think a lot of very interesting characters, very interesting kits coming out. Mereoleona is definitely overall going to be the prize, but let me know what you guys are going to do. Are you going to summon on both banners? Are you going to save for Mereoleona? Are you going to pull for Luck and Yami? Are you, let me know what you're going to do. Are you going to pull for Julius on the rerun banner? Because that could definitely be something you do. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.